Friday, everyone. Rebecca Gebhardt here with my cousin-in-law, Steve Gebhardt, my father-in-law's unofficial favorite nephew. Can we call you that?
I didn't know that.
I don't know that either, but you're here and none of the other cousins are. So
Right.
you can be the official favorite one. Okay, we're live. We're officially live. So I'm excited for everyone to join us. This is our 15th episode of Lessons from the Leaderboard to Leadership. I'm Rebecca Gebhardt, owner of Rise Up Consulting, where we specialize in helping leaders go from sales to sales leadership and then help sales organizations strengthen their corporate sales leadership pipelines. And with me today, I have Steve Gebhardt, who is related. We were just talking about this, but he is my husband's cousin. And Steve has his own very unique, very inspiring journey of how he got into sales, started scaling an insurance agency. And I thought that his lessons, some of his mistakes, some of the things that he finds are the difference makers of now leading 114 insurance offices and being a partner in ASNOA would be insightful for anyone here. So with no more further ado, welcome, Steve.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for welcoming. Glad to be on here.
Now you're in Arizona, so it's really early for you today, and I appreciate you being accommodating.
Not so bad. It's only 8:00.
I have my second coffee. I'm still drinking my second coffee at 8:00. So
yeah, I feel you. I need mine.
All right, Steve. So can you share, you shared this with me a few weeks ago, but can you share like your start in sales? I know it was very random. It was kind of serendipitous if you look back at it now, but can you just share like how you got your start? And then we'll talk about your transition into leadership.
Yeah. I think sorry about that. I think I always had sales in my blood, I guess. But one of the things that really changed my life was I was working at Home Depot. I was a store manager for Home Depot, and someone came into the garden department, and we all wear an apron, so I think people they just expected that I was in the garden department, which is fine, and I was happy to help. And a gentleman wanted some bougainvilleas, and I was helping him, and he looked at me and he said, "What the heck are you doing working at Home Depot in the garden department?" After him and I talked for about 30 minutes. I said, "I'm the store manager. I have 220 employees and 40 million in sales I'm responsible." He's like, "Are you making this much money?" And I immediately thought multi-level marketing. I'm like, what scheme do you want me to get into today? And he's like, no, you should be an insurance agent. And I was like, "Why? You have a job for me?" He's like, "No, I don't have a job for you, but you should check out this career at a captive agency that I've heard really good things about. I've had friends do, and things like that." It was super random. His name was Patrick, and him and I actually, I got his name that day. Maybe I did, but I never really thought much more about it for about 6 weeks, and then something happened at my job, right? And I thought, hey, maybe I should check out this thing at this captive insurance company. So I did, and the rest is history. It just sort of worked out. I took a leap of faith and left a corporate, well-paying job to start up a job that I made zero money at, but it was worth it. Yeah.
So I love that story for a couple of different reasons. When we work with sales leaders, and you and I are going to talk about recruiting in just a few minutes, but we always talk about helping them strengthen their skill sets, their confidence in recruiting. And when you see a sharp person, I tell all of our sales leadership clients, like, you need to talk to them. You need to bring it up. What I love about this guy, Patrick, is he was recruiting you, but he wasn't even recruiting for himself. So I don't know if that was just pure luck, if it was serendipitous, or if his friends at this old insurance company he used to work for, if they were asking everyone they knew to put the feelers out and say, if you see someone sharp who can communicate well, who enjoys being with people, bring up this opportunity. But it's an issue now. We have tons of layoffs happening, right? Like this recession happening. But in sales, it's not that there are sales organizations looking for great people, and you cannot wait for them to just apply. You have to go out and find them, and you find them as you just go about, like Patrick did for you. So I love
Yeah,
that story.
yeah, yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, I actually ran into him later on, like 6 months later at a mall, and he asked me if I checked out a career in that space, and I said I did. And in fact, he didn't know anyone there in leadership. It was just sort of a selfless act. It was just he was like a guardian angel almost. So yeah, interesting.
I love that. And I love that you recognized each other 6 months later at the mall.
He recognized me. I don't think I would have recognized him. I had a tap
Okay.
on.
See, my thing with people is I recognize people, but I can never remember their name. That's my thing. Never remember names, always faces. So he was that way too. Okay, so then can you share? So you started at that. You were a captive agent, and you went independent. And I want to talk about how you started to scale your insurance business, because this is when you went from an individual contributor, a salesperson, to I need to lead this office, I need to lead this team, I need to scale my organization. So can you share with other emerging sales leaders who are going to be watching this, or they're looking, other insurance agents who are looking at, I want to build my business, but it's really hard when you're building alone. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So I left, the sales organization I was with. On paper they said I was an owner, right? But really I was sort of an employee that was 1099. So things changed, and I had to pivot, and it was a super scary time in my life because as I left Home Depot and went into this captive insurance company, I made zero money, right? Now I had to walk away from this other opportunity that I was making really good money to make zero money to sort of grow. I had a landscaper once. He told me, he said, sometimes you have to prune the tree to make it blossom or bloom, right? And that's exactly what happened. And so when I moved over to that new venture, I again was recruited by someone that said, "Hey, come along, leave this thing, and you can come over here." And I was on an island. It was just me. So at that point, it was me doing everything. And I saw a funny, I don't know if it was funny, but it was a picture. It was like the Brady Bunch, and it had a business owner. And this related to me so much back then. And it showed like the owner, and then it said janitor, bookkeeper, accountant, all the jobs of the business. It had the same guy's photo, but he was like, different faces. And I thought that was pretty clever. But that was me, right? And then I had to hire people, and that was a challenge for sure.
So let me ask you a follow-up question about risk. I know you're more inclined to take risks at just how you're kind of wired, educated risks. But moving from, and this is the leap sometimes when people move from sales to sales leadership, their risk isn't that they're not going to make no money, but they typically make less money right away
Yeah.
as a sales leader until they start hitting the direct C-suite level, right? And then you go, okay, this is, and the value and all of that stuff. But
Yeah.
there is a risk to every person. You made a risk to make from going a lot of money to zero money. I'm sure there was like a non-compete or a non-solicit,
Yeah.
there was a lot. You kind of go, oh my gosh. So can you share, and this is kind of like spur of the moment follow-up question, but could you share just some of your thoughts you feel on risk, and how to help people, whether you're recruiting them to go independent right now, or just
Yeah.
salespeople listening and go, I don't know if I want to take that risk to jump into leadership.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. When you go from a salesperson, and like you mentioned before, it's typically a salesperson in a company, in an organization, can be some of the highest grossing people in that organization, right? And then you have the C-suite level. So to make that move is hey, if you can't manage effectively, if you can't build a culture, if you can't recruit, oftentimes those are very key things that you must do every day. Then you lose your job, right? And some of these some of these positions, I know at Home Depot, as I grew through the ranks, they said you can't go backwards. You just got to get off the ladder. When you got promoted to a store manager, they didn't let you go back to an assistant manager. It was okay. You got to leave, right? Those are the risks. But having a good work ethic, having a good plan, having systems in place, having a mentor, those are things that are really important. Probably the mentor is one of the most important things because they've seen it, they've done it before. So that's what my advice would be, to avert risk.
Yep. And I'm with you, right? Because that's what my whole consulting business revolves around, me being the mentor, helping them put systems and processes into place and like leveling up. But for you, did you have a mentor, or are you just like, I know the importance of that now, and I know that's your role with people right now, but did
Yeah,
you have a mentor,
yeah,
or was your
I
learning?
did.
Okay.
I did. I had a great mentor. I had a wonderful mentor. His name was Ralph Kay and George Novak, and were formerly at this captive agency or this captive massive national company. But one of them was in senior management, vice president role. One of them was a state role, and they mentored me for sure, and gave me the tools and the confidence and a foreseeable path, right? And I think that's important too. Is I had a path, that I could follow, and that if I did those things properly, I should be here or better, right? So, and that's definitely something that I instill in myself, is when I find someone to recruit them, I give them a path, that they can that's a, like something that they can actually achieve. It's not a dream. Not one guy did it 12 years ago. It's, look, we can make this happen. So.
That one guy of 12 years ago, he made $1 million. I don't know. No one's done it since, but maybe you'll get lucky, right?
Guy though, right? They always say you be the guy with the Ferrari, and who knows who that guy is, right?
Yep. The poster child, that is the exception, not the norm. Yeah. So let's talk about you're growing your business and growing your team. You came to a point you had to do it, and one of your biggest mistakes when we were talking, the pre-call prep here, was your biggest mistake was not hiring soon enough.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah. So I hired some people, or I hired one person, and I wish I could go back and hire more, back in time, because those early days in the business are really scale. For me, in the first year of being an insurance, agent selling home and auto, business life insurance, those types of products, there's service work that comes later. And the sooner you can really build your client base, the better you're going to be, because you're like Superman or Superwoman in the first 12 months. You have no service work. Year two, hey man, I need to change a car. I'm getting a divorce, right? All these things happen. And not hiring soon enough, obviously, is a factor, and it hurt me a little bit in the beginning.
So I was at a retreat with my business coach back in October, and there was a woman who has scaled a very large digital advertising company, and her advice was hire 6 months before you need someone, because then you can train them, and if it doesn't work out, you still have a few more months to figure that out. Do you? Yeah. And I don't know if she made that up or if that's what she's found, but have you found that now, like as you coach, you work with 114 offices around the country that you're mentoring? What do you tell these independent insurance agents? Are you telling them is that good advice, or how do you encourage them to grow?
I think it is. There's a formula for everything, and if you get enough folks in your funnel, you can forecast where you're going to be. And some of the folks that are, I'd say half the folks that I work with, they leave another captive just like I did. They may have a reserve of cash, rather than use it on exotic things, trips, family time off, things like that. They really, getting that in the pipeline right away. You're going to be able to scale a lot faster. And for me, I found that if I hired someone, I could get about 50% more production than what I could do. Nobody worked as hard as me, because I was working 12 or 16-hour days, right? And that's not achievable for a normal employee. So, hiring someone, I was able to, get 50% of production from that person of what I could do. So, definitely the sooner the better. And you obviously have to be able to afford it. And whether that's, possibly take a loan, or a family, gives you some money to work with, or you have money from a business you sold, or you're in sales leadership at an organization, going and getting those budgets created that way you can, generate that money to go out and hire someone. That's all very important stuff.
Yep. Really important. I know you could probably talk. We won't, I'll stop the tangent we're on right now, but I think it's really valuable. And it's not just like the common sense behind this, but I think something that I love addressing with people is the internal, like how it feels to have to make that decision. Like anyone listening, I'm listening to you like, yep, that's rational. You need to hire people. But then you go, do I have the money? What happens if like it's probably not fearful for you now, right? But I think for these new sales leaders being given the chance to build organizations, I'm from the insurance background as well. I hired people all the time. But if they didn't work out, they were straight commission. So it wasn't like we were, but it is scary. As a leader, then you go, how am I supposed to train them? Am I training them just like me? There's the emotional toll because they need you, and so what you're saying makes perfect sense rationally. But it is sometimes hard emotionally to wrap your head around it.
It is. Monday I start. So I have two separate businesses. Gebhardt Insurance Group is where we sell home and auto insurance, and it's a pretty large agency in Central Arizona, in Casa Grande, Arizona, actually. But that agency's done really, really well, and I can't find a business owner to go to another town called Maricopa. I've been looking and looking and looking, and it's a growing area. So Monday, it sweats me too, because I got to hire somebody, and we're opening up a second Gebhardt location. So to me, that's kind of a big deal. We'll have one person, but again, I built a plan around it, and it's stressful because I'm like, what, there's things to worry about, right? You got payroll and additional costs, and what if it doesn't work, and all those things that run through your mind that they're just natural thoughts. So.
Yep, natural thoughts. Yeah, well, that's good. Congratulations! I didn't know that.
Yeah. So. I'll let you know how it goes. I'm going to track its progress.
I already know how it's going to go, Steve. It's going to go great. I already know how it's going to go. I know you. I know your track record. Okay. So let's talk about, because this is called Lessons from the Leaderboard to Leadership. And within those lessons are typically mistakes. It's not usually the biggest lesson was this great thing I did, right? Like that's not how typically leaders talk. What were some of your biggest mistakes, especially around how you fed people and kind of manage the salespeople in your office?
Yeah. So I think when I built up my own agency and I was hiring people on, one of the biggest mistakes, and I still catch myself in that track. Sometimes I have to like snap myself out of it, but you find you have this thoroughbred in the agency or the office, right, that constantly can get things done, and they're your go person. So there's someone in my agency or a few people in my agency that I know if I give something to, that something is going to be done flawlessly to exactly how I want it done. So what happens is that person already has their workload. I'm giving them my, folks that are coming to me that I'm, don't have the capability to take care of myself any longer because I'm leading an organization. So they are taking on, essentially, 1.25% of what they should be doing, right? So they're stressed, but it doesn't help anyone else grow. So at the end of the day, you end up with this super powerful, great person, and then everyone else is sort of down here. So being able to go out and spread the knowledge, the wealth, even if they make some mistakes, those are learning mistakes, coaching mistakes, and that's a huge thing that I made a mistake on, and I constantly have to catch myself doing it. So
the reason that is so challenging, I feel, is because as salespeople, I always say you think in quarters, quotas, and carrots, right? Like you're always like, what's your here and now? And then as a sales leader, you have to think bigger. And sometimes you're tired, you're working a ton. You go, let me just give this to the person I know can get it done. But you're right. It's like it causes stress among the other agents in your office. Like, well, okay, this is Steve's favorite. And then there's maybe some animosity, and then you're not coaching as well. And so for new sales leaders watching this, even experienced sales leaders, to acknowledge, and it's not healthy to have 80% of your, of your delegation go to one person. Because you're right, they're not learning anything, and the rest of the team isn't learning anything. And you got to help. It's your job as a sales leader to create the circumstances for people to win. And that takes a lot of coaching.
That's a great statement. I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
I knew you were smart.
Yeah. Once you get a middle, a lot of this stuff changes too. Once you have a middle manager that manages then your team, right? Because then you give the things to her and then or him, and then they deal with who it goes to. Um, but until that point, that becomes your job, right? And as organizations grow, oftentimes there isn't that person. You're wearing all the hats, and you may have a team of salespeople or managers.
Yep, and that's the challenge. It's to keep growing, to train someone that you're no longer needed for that role, right? And
Yes.
you're constantly promoting yourself out of roles to encourage others. Okay, so right now, so you've got Gebhardt Insurance, very large office in Casa Grande, right? Am I saying?
Yeah. Tourists say it more like it's some retreat, like Casa Grande, right? And most of the locals just say Casa Grande,
Casa Grande. I'll say it like a local, Casa
Yeah.
Grande. That's so Minnesotan of me to like say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Casa Grande. And then you've got your second office, but you also have this national, insurance network where you are working with independent reps. And so I want to talk about recruiting right now because I think recruiting is the top skill that all sales leaders need to have. And it's a skill that you have. So you're scaling that. We talked about there's 114 offices that don't all report to you, but you're building this, right? Like that's what do you think is key with the recruiting aspect, especially around relationships with people and how you have these conversations and what do you see that works in recruiting when you're because I know you're still growing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a partner in that organization, and one of the things, I'm in charge of my territory, I guess you would say, is Arizona, Nevada. I still live in California, and 14 agencies. These are brick and mortar locations, and they have their own employees too. So getting those agencies to, I guess, operate the way that they should. They're their own business owners. So that's the challenge, right? If they don't want to go to work, they're not going to go to work, but they're also not going to have any money. So, we're trying to really develop these leaders to be, macro versions of my agency or other agencies that they can emulate, right? So within, again, all these conversations we're having today are conversations I have with them every day, and really helping them, supporting them, giving them a plan, helping them, with any sort of problems that they have. That's my day in and day out.
Um, But let's talk about the relationship side of recruiting as well. And I know that's something that you do with sales leaders have to be available to their direct reports.
Yeah.
I help clients put some boundaries on that because things can get way out of control. You are more accessible all the time. I think your capacity to handle a ton of work is, I think, a little bit higher than most. Like what would stress me out doesn't stress you out at all. It's just fun for you. You're going all the time, right? You're just going all the time. But can you talk about that with that relationship? Because what we know to be true is that, and this is a Gallup stat, but the number one indicator, the number one influence over someone's success is their relationship with their direct manager. And so building the proper relationship, building trust in that relationship, building the aspect of respect that they will be coachable, that you are going to, put them in the best situation possible to succeed. There's a lot of nuances in that relationship, but can you speak to that at all, or is it something that you kind of do flawlessly? You're like, I don't know how to define it.
No. I think it's something that you hone that craft over time, right? It all began with the relationship on the recruiting side. Is for me, I'm going to someone, as I came from a captive insurance agency, talking them out of a job basically, but giving them this hope that there's money over here. And it's not just hope, it's, we can prove it, and they achieve it, right? And we have many great agency owners in our group. So I think it starts with that, building out the expectation of what this looks like to come to our organization, right? You join ASNOA, this is what you should see. This is what you should live every day, right? And then being there, like you said, accessibility, right? Honesty, transparency. Those are things that really, really, really go a long way. We do our best as a leadership group too. Um, we have an entire training team, but not only that, we follow up with it locally. Hey, you took this class, great. Did you understand it? And let's put it into practicality for you. Let's look at an actual task at hand here and where this applies to. So those are all things that the follow up, the accountability. If in my case, these are business owners. They own their own company, so I don't have as much oversight over them, but I have to gain that through respect, right? Here's what I've done. Let's do it together over here. So, I guess that's my philosophy is really walking in their shoes. I have, and I continue to, and I can show them what is available for them if they do certain steps, right? And I don't know everything. I learn every day, but being there and being a friend, to them in a very stressful time in their life, to get them to a place where it's a very freeing experience. Being a business owner that's in control is the dream of most business owners, right? Not being tied to your job or your business, right?
You're tied to it for a while, but you don't want to be forever. That's the dream, right? You own the business when it doesn't need you anymore, right? That's when you own it.
Yeah.
One thing you did say, you mentioned accountability, but the other thing that we were talking about are also expectations. And that is something I'll give people outlines of. You got these are the minimum bullet points of expectations when you're onboarding someone, when you're recruiting them, as they get promoted, new role, new rules, new expectations. And you did mention that as well, which is a little bit different than accountability. But if you don't have expectations, you have nothing for you to be accountable to or for them to be accountable to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very true.
So I love that you didn't say that just now, but you did say that in our last conversation. So for those recruiters who do not have at least 3 bullet points of what people can expect, the good and the bad, when you prep people for here's something that's probably going to happen, but we've got your back, that they trust you much more than painting like a Pollyanna, everything's going to be great scenario. And then the first wall that they hit, they go, you didn't tell me about this. What else didn't you tell me about? That whole dynamic is pretty important to recruiting and building trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's pitfalls in every business and every opportunity, right? And I've come across it so many times where, excuse me, I speak to these pitfalls, they happen, and the person says, you told me about this. You were super honest up front. I'm so glad you told me about it because now I know what to do, right? And there's nothing that's perfect. It's just waiting for improvement, right? So it's a good thing to really get out there and let them know what's going to happen, give them those expectations. And for me, on the accountability side, and in my role at ASNOA, it's a little different than at Gebhardt, right? Gebhardt, these are employees. They're hourly or commission employees, so it's a little different situation where the accountability, the business coaching, those things are much different, but almost the same, right? So
there's so many differences, but a lot of similarities, and it's yep. Absolutely. Well, Steve, I appreciate you being here today. You shared several great nuggets that I think emerging sales leaders can use. Where can people reach you? What are you working on? What would you like to just share with those who are watching?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm readily available there. I'm sure Rebecca will plug me on there somewhere on this post. But my biggest thing is really I help insurance agencies, whether they're independent or captive. They're working with American Family or State Farm or Allstate or Farmers, helping them leave those organizations, in a great way, and then go off and do something even better, right? So those are the folks I work with every day, and I'd love the opportunity to talk to someone if you're one of those folks, a captive agent or an independent agent. I'd love to help you achieve more in life, and I guess that's what I'd say. So.
All right, perfect. Well, I appreciate it. People know where to find you. I will definitely tag you. This was we had to cancel yesterday because of technical difficulties. So this wasn't as streamlined, but it's live. People can watch it. We'll make sure we tag you. Thanks so much for joining me, Steve.
Yeah, no problem. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on, Rebecca.